Pirani, you can decentralize your company's risk management by inviting all your collaborators, consultants, or anyone you choose to participate in constructing, administrating, and reporting on your risk management system. Best of all, Pirani offers ultimate users at no extra cost. Welcome to the software you can use from day one, leaving behind those never-ending implementations. With Pirani, you can configure and customize all your information to align with your organization's methodology and specific needs. You can save up to 60% of your time on operational tasks by generating indicators and reports within minutes. Should a risk materialize, you can stay informed in real time. With Pirani, users can report events or incidents from any device, enabling quick and effective management. Already over 30,000 users across 82 countries trust Pirani to manage their risks. Pirani stands alone as the sole Latin American software recognized by Capterra, Software Advice, and G2 as one of the premier global risk management solutions, thanks to the rave reviews from customers and users alike. Pirani streamlines risk management with its operational risk management, information security, anti-money laundering, audit, and compliance systems. So what's holding you back? Choose the best plan for your business and get started with the risk management tool of your dreams. Hey, did you know you can start for free? What are you waiting for? Pirani, we make risk management simple.
Managing compliance with regulations can be daunting because it requires us to implement, follow up, and verify compliance with internal and external rules while involving other areas. That is why Pirani is the ideal tool for your company. Through Pirani, you can centralize your compliance management by creating regulations and adding the necessary clauses for effective implementation. You can designate a compliance officer to ensure proper follow-up. In addition, Pirani's Event module allows members of your organization to report any materialization of risks from any device. You can download customized reports in PDF, PNG, or Excel with just a few clicks. As you can see, compliance management becomes simple with Pirani. Choose the best plans for your company and obtain better results by using the easiest tool. Try our tool for free and see for yourself how easy it is to use. What are you waiting for? Pirani, we make risk management simple. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to involve other areas in operational risk management? And if we add to that the regulatory requirements that the organization must comply with, we are facing a big headache for any risk area. With Pirani, you can easily involve the different areas of your organization to create effective risk management and comply with regulations in a simple way through the identification and registration of your processes, risks, causes and consequences, controls, events, action plans, indicators, assessments, and reports that you can configure according to the needs of your company. This way, you will have all your information centralized in a single platform, so you can make decisions efficiently and assure business continuity. And you know what the best part is? Pirani is constantly evolving, adapting the best regulations practices, such as ISO 31000, Basel II, and COSO ERM to provide a comprehensive risk management tool. What are you waiting for to use Pirani? Discover the best plan that suits your needs with the simplest to use software. Pirani, we make risk management simple. Information is increasingly exposed and vulnerable in a more technological and globalized world. Regardless of the sector or size of your company, you have information about customers, employees, suppliers, and processes that you must protect. Information is the most critical asset of any company. You must guarantee its confidentiality, integrity, and availability by managing all the risks associated with your processes and information assets to avoid bad practices, leaks, or attacks, such as kidnapping or data theft. With Pirani's Information Security Risk Management System, you will be able to comply with the ISO 27001 standard and quickly identify and manage processes, information assets, risks, and controls, document incidents, as well as generate action plans, view graphical reports of all your management, define indicators, and perform evaluations. What are you waiting for? Choose the best plan for your business and start managing your information security risks with the easiest to use software on the market. Hey, the first 15 days are free. Pirani, we make risk management simple. In an increasingly demanding business world, organizations must stay one step ahead by optimizing their audit processes, saving valuable time, and reducing the operational burden on their teams. With Pirani, you can carry out rigorous internal audits by controlling and monitoring your organization's internal norms, standards, and regulations. Easily schedule and assign audits by setting deadlines, delegating to the audit team, and defining the objectives and scope of each audit. Build customized checklists to define evaluation criteria, establish questions, and add relevant comments for each process you want to audit. Attach files directly, facilitating collecting evidence, accessing and reviewing information during audits. Additionally, establish remediation and improvement plans for identified findings. This way, you will contribute to the continuous improvement of your organization. Choose the best plan for your company and optimize your audits with the easiest to use tool. What are you waiting for? Try Pirani for 15 days. Pirani, we make risk management simple.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Risk Management School. My name is Stephanie Orengo, and I'm a member of the Pirani team. I'm excited to be here with you today to explore the theoretical and practical aspects of the different topics that we will see. To help us delve into this session, we're happy to have Ernesto here with us, who's going to discuss a couple of different topics. Hi, Ernesto. How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I know for some of you it is later in the afternoon, but nonetheless, I am very excited to show you guys what we have in store today.
Cool.
And yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie, for that intro.
Of course, nice to see you. Before we begin, I wanted to invite everybody to learn about our risk management school by visiting the Pirani Academy, where you'll find valuable learning materials. And we'll leave the link of the Pirani Academy in the chat. Thank you, Nicole. And finally, if you have any questions during the webinar, also just please feel free to ask them through the questions and sections down below, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. And also, I wanted to let you guys know about our very cool project, our YouTube space. So if you guys want to learn more about what Pirani does and just watch more educational videos on us, we have a YouTube channel that we invite you to subscribe. We'll leave the link in the chat as well, if Nicole will put that in there. And yeah, we'll see you on YouTube. So now let's begin. We're going to begin with the topic. So over to you, Ernesto. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. So yeah, today we're all gathered to learn how to make a risk management matrix. Now, I'm just going to let you guys know, I'm going to talk about this generally because, as we all know, there are various methods, tools, or ways to create a matrix. So I'm really going to stick and focus to the foundational concepts we need to understand for embarking on this journey for making a risk management matrix. Now, if at any point, as you know, my colleague Stephanie here mentioned that you want more information about risk management or how to make a risk management matrix or any other topics related to risk management, we really do encourage you to take advantage of that academy. There's a lot of valuable information there to help you solve whatever issues you're encountering on your risk management journey. So yeah, and then on top of that, we also have a YouTube channel dedicated to risk management and all that encompasses. So yeah, I highly encourage you to subscribe so whenever we have our latest video come out, you get notified right away. Now, for today's agenda, this is what we have planned. So first off, we're going to start out with learning the importance of risk management, and then what is a risk management matrix, and then why it's important. What are the benefits of using this? Why is this such a popular thing within this field? Then we're going to go into understanding how to create a matrix, and then we're going to go into some practical examples and cases here. And then if we have time, we will definitely round out the hour with some Q&A. So let's begin, guys. All right. So the importance of risk management. Again, I know some of you are seasoned veterans in this space, but I'd like to make sure that we're all on the same page going into this. So for us, risk management is a process used to identify potential risks and develop strategies to address and mitigate them. I mean, it's a very important part of any business, and it's vital, excuse me, for the long-term sustainability of their operations. And for us here at Pirani, we really have two main goals for doing risk management. It's one, to reduce the unexpected loss and ensure the security of your company's assets. But the one I really like to align with is identify what areas are optimal for investment within the company. Um, and then ultimately, it's important for businesses to manage these risks effectively, as it can help protect against those losses, the reputational damage, or any operational disruption. So this is why we specialize in this here. Now, I want to get the brain, working here and thinking of some examples, because this is going to be very important for us further down this presentation. So I have some good examples of risk management strategies implemented by companies. Most notably for me, I'm a big outdoorsy guy. I love Patagonia, but I don't just love them for their materials. I love them because they have implemented a great risk management strategy in that if you buy anything from them, you can return it. If it's returned within the year, you get a full cash refund. If it was returned after a year, you still get the equivalent value back in store credit. So that way you can get an exact replica of what you originally had in case your coat ripped or your backpack has a strap that tore off. They're making sure that their reputation stays top tier amongst the outdoors community. And then on top of that, they also have made it like their mission to make sure that anything that they invest in outside the company is very eco-friendly related, which again just helps with the perception of the company from an outsider's point of view. Now, another good example of risk management that a lot of restaurants implement, or at least should, is have like a quality assurance person on their line, making sure that every dish, once it's finished, is actually cleaned up, made correctly, and going out to the correct person. I used to work in the restaurant industry a lot, actually, and you want this guy to be your best friend because you want to make sure nobody's spitting in your food. But yes, so these are some good examples. Now, let's take a look at some bad examples here. All right. So most recently, if you haven't heard the news, there was a very big freight company in the US that went bankrupt. Now, there's a lot of reasons that result in the bankruptcy, which means ultimately their risk management strategies failed, which is not good because now all these other companies that are relying on them for their materials or their services can no longer rely on them and need to go look elsewhere. And then I'm a huge crypto guy. I don't know if you guys are, but for me, I was devastated at the collapse of FTX. Thankfully, I wasn't affected too greatly. But yes, they went bankrupt because they were taking these massive risky bets in the market and played with their customers' deposits. That's obviously not a good strategy, especially if you're not considering the risk to reward ratio there. And ultimately, stuff like this happens when that is not taken into account. So now that I've given you guys some good examples and some bad examples here, definitely start writing in the chat what some good examples or bad examples you've personally seen or you would come up with in business that you currently work in. So yeah, let's see that chat blow up. All right. And while that's going on here, we're going to go into what is a risk matrix. Now, I know it's going to vary based on, again, if you're doing this by hand. I know some people who do create these risk matrices by hand. Some people prefer to use Excel, and other people have like some third-party software that they use. So again, I'm just going to talk generally here because it can look different from organization to organization. So a risk management tool is something that's used to identify, assess, and quantify your company's risks. It helps visualize and prioritize your risks based on their likelihood and potential impact. And then ultimately, why we create these matrices is that it helps managers and the personnel to make decisions on how to act when faced with those risks that are most likely to happen. So this is a good game plan, or a good, I guess in a sense, a checklist for some people to make sure that when X happens, you do Y. That is what a risk matrix is, and what its ultimate goal is to do for you. Now, what are some of the benefits of a risk matrix? I mean, there are a lot of benefits, but the three I really like to focus on is that one, it helps with the prioritization of those risks. That way you stay organized, because again, as we all know, there are risks that are very likely to happen and those that are very unlikely to happen with varying degree of impact. And so if you have your things that are most unlikely to happen at the top and always at your point of mind, you're going to forget the ones that are most likely to happen. And that's not a good thing. So this helps you organize and keep in mind, like, okay, hey, daily, these are the ones we need to look out because they're the ones that happen the most frequently. Now, the second reason I really like using a risk matrix is because it helps with the improved decision making within an organization. Oftentimes when something happens, we're very reactive. We don't have a plan or a set person who's responsible for taking on that risk. This risk matrix helps you do that. It already predetermines what is supposed to happen and who is supposed to be the one in charge once that risk actually takes place. And then ultimately, it helps with enhanced communication across your organization. Because the benefit of a risk matrix is not only is it something visible that you can look at, it's also something you can share with other people, talk about. One thing I really like about risk matrices is that you also often have to get a team together to talk about risks that they're expecting, and just that communication and that dialogue of understanding your day-to-day operations and the obstacles you're going to be facing just perhaps helps remove that obstacle to potentially you know going into chaos. Everybody's just screaming, running around with like a chicken without their heads. That's not something we want. We want people that are organized and know what to do in that situation. So these are the benefits. And if you have any other benefits that you think of, definitely put it in the chat. Again, the more we share here, the better off I think everybody in this community will be. And in the meantime, I definitely want to, I'll let you guys know what makes up a risk matrix generally. So a risk matrix is made up of, as we've all guessed it, risks. Then followed by mitigation strategies or controls, as we like to put it sometimes. They can be interchangeable, sometimes they're separate. Again, it's going to depend on your organization. And then lastly, you're going to want to consider the likelihood and impact of each scenario. This is going to be very important, again, with the organization of how those risks are going to line up within your risk management matrix. And then ultimately, I think this is very important to note before you even begin creating a risk matrix. It's you want to understand the context or the framework that you want to work with when creating this risk management matrix. So for example, you have some ISO standards, some COSO frameworks. There are a couple other frameworks out there. And yeah, definitely, if you have a framework you want to share in the chat, definitely put it in there, because I feel like there's so many out there that people get overwhelmed. But the more we see, these namings of frameworks, the more aware we'll be, and we can potentially implement within our companies. All right, so now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes here of today's webinar, creating a risk matrix. All right, so ultimately, like I said, the most important thing is understanding your context or your framework. Once you've identified that framework, you're going to want to identify your risks, okay? So taking into account the scope and context of your processes within a company, you're going to want to, understand, are there natural disasters that are going to be happening within, your area? Is there going to be, some supply chain issues that you could potentially foresee? These are things we need to account for. And especially if you're working in tech, understanding how your data is stored, how it's kept, making sure that the data security is up to date, very important these days. So again, this is where you definitely want to start brainstorming. This is where you're going to start, thinking about your risks that you'll be facing. So definitely share some stuff in the chat here about any of those risks that you're seeing in your day to day. All right. Now, step 2 is going to be addressing the likelihood and impact of these risks. Now, the typical standard for doing something like this is creating a 5x5 grid. I have seen 3x3s. That's another common one. But again, it's going to depend on your organization and how your team wants to move forward with your risk matrix. Now, like we see here in the standard 5x5, we have our impact on one end and likelihood on the other. Those can be interchangeable. They don't have to be like you see here on this graphic here. You can flip them. You can change what sides you are. It's not, how do I say, set in stone. What's most important though is understanding your categorization within each of those lines. Okay, so once we have assessed our likelihood and impact of these risks, the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and define your mitigation strategies and create your controls. So, for example, whenever, let's say, we're running a financial services company, we need to understand, okay, what happens if I'm working with a customer or a client for the financial services company who's, working with investing into the stock market. We need to make sure that in case, the value of their portfolio goes down, that we have some ways of, how do I say, being available for them, because they're going to come in with questions. So you definitely want to have a customer service department there, and you want to have, how do I say, controls there to like, okay, hey, I totally understand, you're worried about the state of things. You can set up an appointment with your portfolio manager here or whatnot. That's a control. That's something you can do to help the person calm down from the fact that, hey, I'm feeling very emotional right now. And there are various other examples we can go into, but I definitely would love to see in the chat some examples that you're working with. Okay, no worries. I know there's a bit of a delay here, but another example I like for controls is, let's say we're working with another client who, let's say, can't afford our services after we've worked for them for a while. A good control we can put is implementing a payment plan strategy. This way we can ensure that, one, we have that relationship and that business with that client still, and also have a way of getting the money for our services. It may not be ideal for us. Obviously we'd want all the money up front, but getting it in parts is better than not getting it at all. And that helps mitigate the damage to us financially and operationally. Let's see here. There we go. So putting it all together. Once we've identified our risks and we've associated its likelihood and its impact to the organization, and then implemented any controls or mitigation strategies to that risk, it'll look something like this. And again, this is just a general overview of what a risk matrix can look for you. But regardless of how you make your risk matrix, some really good best practices I recommend is, one, use colors. As you can see, this helps you see like what risks are very low priority and which ones are very high priority. It's a very quick, easy way to understand. Next, I really, how do I say, urge you to do regular updates, because the world's always changing. There are always, new risks popping up, new technologies, new ways of doing things. And because of that, that's going to result in more risks for the company. So you want to make sure this is regularly updated. And that doesn't necessarily mean you always have to add things to your risk matrix. Sometimes things get phased out, like videotapes. Who watches movies on videotapes anymore? Very few people. So that's just an example of something that's been faded out of the world that used to be, very popular with all of us. Another really good best practice tip I can give you is just involve your stakeholders. The more people you can get involved within a certain process, the better and more accurate your risk matrix will be. And then ultimately, again, just monitoring and reviewing these risk matrices is just an ongoing thing. It's like showering. You got to do it every day. You gotta make sure that it's maintained, because if you don't, whenever something happens and you haven't updated it, what was the point of investing all those working hours into creating this risk matrix? So that is how you create a risk management matrix. Now, I understand that some of us may be new to the game and don't have a way or a method of creating a risk management matrix. But thankfully, that's where Pirani comes in. We actually have a free version of our software that's not requiring any credit card to sign up with. All you need is your email. And as you can see, the people who use our software love us. We have a lot of really good reviews on G2 and Capterra that show how easy and friendly we are to use for people working within risk management. So if you want, definitely go to our website, and actually I'll have Nicole or Stephanie drop the link for the free version of our software for you to sign up, because I'm going to show you how you can actually create a risk management matrix within the software. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to get that started while I also navigate over there. So just bear with me. Awesome. All right, I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes here because I know it's going to take a little bit of time for you guys to log in to the software. But I'll just give you a general overview here of what the software is like. I don't know why this thing's up here. Come on. There we go. There we go. All right. So what we're going to do is every time we come into the software, you're always going to be greeted by your risk heat map. So the more you do on the software, I mean, the more risks and processes that you add, it's all going to show up here at first glance. And one thing I really love about Pirani software is that it's intuitive. And I say that because whenever you first enter, I know it can be a little intimidating. You're like, where the heck do I start? And the great thing is that to start, it's like a funnel. All you got to do is start at the top and work your way down. And that's what we're going to do here when we're adding things to create our risk matrix. And I do want to clarify something here. Oftentimes people get confused. They think this heat map here is the matrix. It's actually not. It is part of the matrix. So they're not completely wrong when they assume that. But really, the matrix for Pirani is everything you see here. So this menu with all of these sections and the heat map. So ultimately, the heat map is just the visual component of the risk matrix. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how we can start creating our risk matrix within Pirani. Now, to begin, like I said, we're just going to start at the top. We need to identify our process, okay? So with Pirani, our philosophy here when it comes to processes is that your process is going to be your context. And the best way to do that is associating your what we call macro processes with the departments within your organization. And what you're going to do is, like you saw there, you're going to click on the green button on the right-hand corner, and you're going to get this menu that pops up, okay? So what I like to do first is come here to my category, because this helps me determine what level of process I'm working with. And I can go into more detail of how those processes work, but that's going to be like a whole nother webinar. But if you want, definitely check out our YouTube. We actually have a webinar going over processes way more in depth. So just for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and work with a macro process here, which again is like the department within your organization. So let's say, again, we're running like an accounting firm or a financial services firm. It's going to be a macro process here. And this department is going to be our client services. Okay. Now for type, we have three options to select here: your missional, your strategic, and your supporting. Now, just a quick overview here of what that means. Your missional statements are your processes that are core to the business. Like, this is what the business does, type of processes. Next, you have your strategic. Your strategic processes, those are more for things that help the, how do I say, execution of your missional statements or your missional processes, excuse me there. So things like that could be like, let's say we're running a pizza company, okay? And we need help selling these pizzas because ultimately our mission is to make and sell pizzas. And so our strategic process here could be something like marketing or creating a promotion to help sell more of those pizzas. And then our third option here is our supporting types of processes, which are ultimately things within the organization or processes within the organization that help other departments work. So this could be something like your customer support department, your customer success department, something like that, or operations, just making sure that everyone's working and removing blockers for other departments in the company or processes or whatever. So for us, let's say we're going to go ahead and say this is our missional statement, like client services. People come to our accounting firm or financial services firm, for help with their finances. That is what we're here to do. And so you can type a quick description here, something like help people with their finances. Again, you can go as in depth as you want here when you create these. Once you finish this part, all you're going to do is click on create. All right. And once it's created, it's actually going to appear at the very bottom here. So anytime you add a new process, it's always going to be added to the bottom. All right. Once we've created our process, the next thing we're going to want to do, or actually, I'll give you guys a couple of minutes here. I'll give you like a couple seconds here, excuse me, to finish that up because I know I might be moving a little fast. Yes, once you finish your process, the next thing we're going to do is continue moving down the list. So next we're going to go to risks. So we're going to click on that. Awesome. And we're going to see an overview of our risks. Now, some things I want us to note here right off the bat is that you're going to have your risks name, and you're going to have these two columns here, your inherent risks and your residual risks. Now, just to give you a brief overview of what that means, because again, we have other videos that go more into depth on this on our YouTube channel. So I really, really urge you guys to check those out if you have questions regarding anything you see here. But yes, inherent risk is basically like once you first input the risk without any controls, without any mitigation strategies associated with it, that's going to be its inherent, risk level. Then once you've started associating controls and mitigation strategies and associated with the risk, then you're going to look at the column for residual risk to see how those controls and mitigation strategies affect that risk. Does it lower it? Obviously, we hope it does. Now, how do we create a risk? What we're going to do is we're going to go over here and click on create risk in the upper right-hand green button. All right. Now, the cool thing here is that you can either decide to type it in manually if you already know your risks. If you don't know of a risk and need help with that, we actually have an integration with ChatGPT. So to do that, you just click on that green text that says suggest a risk, select your industry and select your process, and that will help ChatGPT generate a risk for you. Now, for the sake of simplicity though, I'm going to go ahead and create something manual here. So let's say, again, just to provide context here, we're running like an accounting firm or financial services type of industry, and we're working within our client services department. So a risk we need to account for is what happens if, let's say, a client defaults. What we're going to do is type in the name of the risk, right? Then we need to determine its impacts, okay? And again, this can be determined by you and your stakeholders or your risk management team. So this is where that communication is very important. This is something that's very critical to us. Because obviously, if we're working for someone and they're not paying us, that's going to be a problem. What's the likelihood of this happening? Well, again, you need to determine that with your company, but it's likely. Something that's very likely for us, because if we have a lot of clients and we don't know them that well, or just with the inherent unpredictability of our economy these days, this is something that is on the table for us. And then you can go into further detail of that here and explain as to why you created things the way they are and or rated things the way they are in terms of your impact and likelihood. And then lastly, what you need to do is determine how you're going to address this risk. There are 4 options here. You have your acceptance, you have your transfer, mitigation, and avoidance. Accepting risk is just like, hey, this is life. We're not going to do anything about it. Transfer risk is like, hey, we want to get an insurance policy from another company to cover us in case we have a lot of defaults, kind of like how the FDIC works within the US. So that's one way. You can have mitigation strategies where, let's say, to avoid this likelihood or impact of a default, let's ask for some money up front before we even work with the person. Have like a deposit or a retainer. That's something that helps mitigate that risk of, hey, they defaulted. Now how we're financially vulnerable. It helps mitigate that. And then avoidance, which is in this case something like, hey, let's just not do business with them at all. Or yeah, I mean that's basically how that would translate. So definitely think here, as to how your context would work with how you want to address the risk. Now, for the sake of this this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and go with mitigation. All right. Now, once I create mitigation, I'm going to go over here to processes because I need to associate this risk with the process. So once I come over here to the processes tab on the menu, I'm going to go ahead and click on the green associate button. And what you're going to see is a list of all my processes that we made. Okay. And then remember, we were making something for client services. So to associate this this risk with this process, what we're going to need to do is go ahead and click on this associate process button here. It's like this green paperclip looking icon. So all we need to do is simply click on that and it's associated. All right. So yep, we got the confirmation number. We're going to go to return. All right, and I'm just going to double check here, make sure everything's filled out. Because again, anything asterisk means you need to complete that in order for this to be saved. So awesome, it is saved. And once we've finished this, notice we have a preview of how this risk is going to appear within our risk heat map. So this is where it stands. And again, I haven't created any controls. So if I create a control and associate it with this risk, this is going to move and you're going to see another set of initials for how they label it as a how do I say, residual risk. So I'm going to go ahead and create. There we go. All right, so next thing we're going to do is go over to controls. All right. So once we go over and navigate to the controls section here, what we're going to notice is a couple of things. Obviously, first thing we're going to see is our control name. We're also going to see how it's rated or how, based on your criteria, how solid and how effective this control is associated with its risk. Now, to create a risk, what we're going to do is, again, click on the green button over here for create control. We're going to get another menu that pops up. And here, we're going to need to input our information. So again, with the context of, hey, we're working in a financial services company, or we're working within the Department of Client Services, and we have a risk of clients defaulting. What is a control that we can implement to negate that impact and likelihood of it happening? Well, as I mentioned before, let's ask for a deposit or a retainer up front. That way we get some money for our services. And give me a sec. Oof, throat. Ooh, there we go. Way better. All right. So we're going to type that in. So we're going to say require a deposit up front. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and rate how our controls work in this situation. So what kind of quality control is this? Is this corrective, detective, or preventative? Well, again, this is going to be subjective to you and your team for whatever control you're creating. But yeah, for us in this situation, I would say it's preventative because we are trying to completely eliminate that risk of completing all our services and then not getting any money for it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 100%. Next, type of execution. Is this something that's manually done? Is it combined? Is it automatic? You know, let's say we have a invoicing software that we use for our clients to collect those deposits. That's a combined type of action because one, you know, obviously we need to send the invoice, but the ability to collect and send a receipt for the transaction can be done by the software. So in this case, I'm going to consider it combined. Is this control executed repeatedly? Yes, because we're doing this for all clients, and sometimes clients work with you multiple times. And this is the way we're going to want to operate moving forward. So most certainly, is this documented? Yes, because you know we're trying to keep. We're an accounting firm. We have to keep documents. You know, if we don't, the SEC might be angry with us. All right, let me go down here. It is documented. Is there any evidence? Yes, you certainly want to have evidence in this situation because again, we don't want the SEC or the Federal Trade Commission coming after us or anything like that. And then are there assigned control owners? Again, this will be up to your organization if you want to assign someone an owner, but in this case, we won't have a specific person because every CPA or person within the client services department will have their own book of business, let's say. All right, next we're going to go to execution, and we're going to see this, quality control criteria here. So have these events been presented? Meaning, sorry, my voice is giving out on me. All right, have events been presented? Well, so when we say events, it's like, hey, has this risk actually happened and affected your company due to the I mean, let me take a step back here. So since the implementation of this control, have risk events that have happened been, how to say, done in real life or not? Meaning, did your control work or not? Is essentially how it translates, or has it negated any effect from a risk event related to the risk that this control is trying to mitigate, if that makes sense. Again, if you need me to clarify, put it in the chat, because I know it's a little conceptual there. But yeah, thankfully for us, no. Because we keep asking for deposits, no risk events related to defaults have presented themselves to us during this time. Is the design effective? Yes, because again, we're just asking for the money up front, or at least enough money to cover, our costs up front. And then is the evidence effective of this working? Of course, yes. So once that's all done, you're going to go ahead and you need to associate this control with a risk. So we're going to go over here to your risks. And again, click on the green associate button. All right, and then we're going to need to find our, let's see, where was it? Client defaults. I would assume it'd be on the first page, but it might be on the second. There it is at the very bottom. All right, and we're going to associate that risk. Once again, we get the confirmation number, we need to return, because here we're going to rate how this control is working for this risk. So here we have these movable bars that let us know how we're going to rate this. Oh, excuse me. So how does this mitigate impact? It mitigates impact massively. Let's say 85%, because we ask for 85% of the total value of our services up front, or so forth. mitigate likelihood. I would say that's a very strong likelihood of it mitigating the risk of a customer defaulting and not paying us because we're getting the money up front again. So once we've associated that, we're going to go ahead and hit create. Wonderful. Now, once we've created our process, our risk, and our control, now we can take a look at our heat map and see how this worked out. So again, you go to your dashboard. In your dashboard, you're going to see the See More button down here. Wonderful. All right. Now, when you get to your dashboard, I mean, when you get to the detailed view of your heat map, you're going to see some options here. I'm going to keep it simple and just stick to inherent risks. I'm going to show you the residual here in a sec. But again, remember when we had our risk for this exercise here, I put it here because again, when we were typing in all the criteria for that risk, it showed us that preview that it would be in this quadrant here. So if we want to check on it, we just go over here and we see how it's been placed. Now, oh, excuse me. Now, if we want to check the residuals, anything in the white dot or the white circles, those are your residual risks. So, oh, sorry, clicking on the wrong one there. There we go. So again, if we go here, client default, when you click on that risk, you're going to see the original inherent risk. But once you implement your controls, it's going to show you where it now lies within the risk heat map, which now we can see as something that's going to be rather an unlikely event to happen and have significant impact, but not be as critical as it originally was without our control of asking for those deposits. So that is how you create a risk matrix within our Pirani software. I definitely want to know, do you guys have any questions? Yeah, I guess now we can go into our Q&A. Come on, guys, I'm friendly. I don't bite.
Thanks, Ernesto. That was great. I enjoyed everything. I hope everyone's been learning a lot. I wonder if we have any questions. Let's see. I know Nicole has been answering some stuff for anybody. Let's see. Any questions? Let's see. I don't see any Q&A questions as of yet. Okay.
No worries.
All right. Well, does anybody have any examples that they want to see Ernesto, play into the solution? Perhaps like a certain risk or a control that you guys want to backtrack and see how else, it can go into your everyday? Or do you have any other examples, Ernesto, that perhaps you can show them?
Yeah, sorry, my voice is about to get out.
That's okay.
No worries though.
Hold on, let's see. Okay, we have here someone. Okay, hi Thurman, how are you? And Samuel, thank you. So we can do two things. We can either do an Uber example or a climate change risk. Okay, let's go a little bit into what Samuel said, which was about the climate change risk. How would you, implement that in the software, Samuel? Like what kind of, okay, so if it's a climate change risk, I guess let's go back to the risk page.
Of course.
Okay, so climate change would be a risk.
And
what would be a control, right? So let's, I guess, show them how would we input the climate change risk. And then
okay. Yeah, so let's say we're working with a climate change risk. Yeah, we can start off with that. Okay, so again, we're going to go down to risks. Sorry, let me got ahead of myself there. Yeah, so we're just going to come down here to risks. Once again, click on this green button for creating a risk. And once we go in there, all right, let's say, yeah, okay, we're working with climate change. Climate change risk. Okay, how is this going to impact us? And again, this is going to be something that's going to be up to your organization and your time frame here. That's an important thing we all need to consider. Is like, what is our time frame that we're working within? So if we're saying, okay, this is a climate change risk for, let's say we're a hotel on the beach, okay? And we're worried about climate change because the ocean will keep rising and eventually, flood our hotel. I know in Florida, this is an issue for some areas. So they have to keep, shipping in containers of sand to make sure that the sea doesn't rise and go into all these hotels. So that's a yearly thing. So that's a very critical or catastrophic even event. If again, you got to consider your context here, because let's say you are, I don't know, somewhere up in the mountains. You're not really worried about sea levels rising that rapidly within a year. Again, you got to think of your context here. So I'm going to work from the context of that. Or Samuel, do you have a context you want us to work within for this risk?
Okay. Halsey said, in your point of view, how often should a company revise the risk matrix? If a process has changed, maybe it should be, I'm sorry, maybe it should, but is there a period of time?
Yeah, great question. I mean, honestly, I would suggest something like that quarterly, just because, in the world of business, I'm talking like from a corporate point of view too. I don't know your industry specifically, Halsey, but if you're working in like a corporate America type setting, I would suggest either every 6 months or something, quarterly. Somewhere in that is generally a sweet spot. Um,
Right.
but if you're not in corporate, I would definitely say like 6 months. Then that would be a good uh, time frame for reevaluating
Okay.
your risk matrix. But yeah, Samuel, rise input prices.
And we had a
Okay,
question from Annie. She says, if I need to create a risk matrix to get started in risk management, what would you say?
I mean, it doesn't help. I mean, it's definitely a key skill for risk management. So however you can start getting your experience within the field, I suggest do it. So if that means making a risk management matrix, then yes. And the great thing again is Ronnie's free to use. You can
Mhm.
show if you're interviewing for other risk management positions down the road, having this free software and having something to show your interviewer, like, hey, you know, I make risk management matrices. Here's my thought process and how it works. Here's my criteria for why I've ranked things the way they are. To an employer, that's going to show ambition. It's going to show that, hey, she's thinking the way we want them to think, assuming you're aligned with the field that you're going into. So yes, I suggest, like, if you're trying to get started, start creating, start thinking, start getting that muscle worked, because it will just help you down the road. But yeah, let's go back to the climate change risk. So I do want to finish this for you guys. So yeah, Samuel, can you provide us a little bit more context here related to climate change risk? Like, is there a specific industry that you're working in, or a specific process that you're looking at? Because otherwise, I'll just make something up general, and we'll go with my hotel example if that's okay.
Yeah, just to answer one of our audience's questions, Thurman, actually, or just to answer your question, is it free beyond the free trial? So what we're doing is we have a freemium right now, and right now you can log into our website and go into the starter pack, which would be labeled under the freemium. You'll be able to kind of go in there and play with the sandbox and stuff like that. Yeah, we do every 2 weeks. Sorry, what is this? Yeah, that's what it is. So the freemium plan right now, you can go on the website and you can get started on the starter pack.
Then yeah,
Yep,
just to go
you're
back to the
welcome.
climate change risk here and finish this out. So yeah, like obviously, if the whole ocean's coming into your hotel, that's going to be catastrophic. What is its likelihood? If you're again on the coast in Florida where they're, in certain areas trying to bring in sand to prevent the sea from rising, it's a very likely scenario that you're dealing with. So this is where again you'll get that preview of where it lies on the risk matrix, and then this is your treatment. How are you gonna mitigate this risk or control this risk? So again, here in Florida, they're going to bring truckloads of sand to the beach to try to raise the beach level and prevent the sea from rising. So we're going to go with that. It's going to be a mitigation type of treatment. So yeah, that once that's created, we're going to go associate that with the process. Assuming we have created a process here. Let's say it's a management process. So we're going to go ahead, associate it, and then just make sure everything's good. Take a
And I
double
think
check.
that we had
And then hit create.
I think a control, and just to kind of say, because I know that you took the time to do the climate change risk to show everyone, and I think a control for this climate risk would be sustainability politics. That was something that we were, that would be considered a control. So you would go in there and put that in inside the control. And then with that, because I know we have just a couple of minutes just left, but yeah, if anybody has any other last questions, and then also I did want to tell everybody a little bit about at the end of the webinar, we're going to send you guys a little survey, so that way you guys can answer a couple of questions regarding what you liked in the webinar, if there's anything that you wanted us to, bring up next webinar. And any feedback, advice, or just comments, suggestions, we're all open to it. If you guys could just give us that little 1 minute after the webinar and take a brief look at the survey. But yes, controls, that's what we were talking about just now, right?
We're just getting into controls. So yeah, if we wanted to add sustainability politics as a control, we certainly can. So we'll just go into the controls again. Type in sustainability politics. All right. And I know we have a couple of minutes here, so I'll have to fly through this. But again, we got to go through our control design criteria here. So control type, this is preventative in some cases, or, well, it depends obviously on the type of politics here. So just for simplicity's sake, I'll say it's preventative. Type of execution, this is something that's manual. It's politics, you got to talk to people. You have to get things, worked in person a lot of times. Is this control executed repeatedly? Yes, this is an ongoing thing. The politics will never end. For better or for worse, that's just one of those things that will be in existence. Is it documented? Yes, it is something that's documented, because again, they're creating their politics, their policies, and writing it out for everybody to see and enforcing it. Is there evidence? Yes. Are there assigned control owners? Depending on the legislation, again, for the sake of this exercise, I'll just go ahead and say yes. All right, execution. All right, here are our criteria here. Have events been presented? So yeah, there are times where sometimes a policy gets enacted and it doesn't work. That's just the way the world works sometimes, But again, that just means you have to go back to the process of politics and try to get a new regulation created or taken away, just so the quality of the issue gets resolved in a better way. Is it effective? Again, that'll be up to you and your organization here. I like to think yes, they are effective. Is the evidence effective? Yes, I would like to say it is also effective. So here we have our final rating here, and then we're just going to need to go ahead and associate it with the risk. Again, it's going to be the last one because we just created it. Climate change risk, click on the associate risk. There we go. But then we have to do the toggles. Remember that, guys. We have these bars that we need to adjust. So what is the mitigation of impact for sustainability politics? I'll give it an 80. Does it mitigate its likelihood? I don't know. It's one of those things, again, it's going to be up to you guys. I'm going to give it 50-50. All right. So once that's done, you're just going to hit create. There we go. We're going to go back to our risks here real quick, so I need to see where it landed on. And again, if you don't remember where it lies, you can always just go back into the edit risk and go back to your matrix here, see where it's at. Oops. I gotta move so many bars. Sorry, guys. There we go. Cool. So then we can go to our dashboard. see more. And see where it lies. So if we click here, we're going to see climate change risk right there. And then if we want to see how its residuals are, or how its residuals work, we're going to go ahead and click on this again. And we can see how the inherent risk is, and once we implement the control, where it lies on our risk matrix. So thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure getting to teach you guys how to make a risk management matrix within Pirani. I hope you found it very valuable. But yeah, I'll hand over the mic to Stephanie here. And thank you, Stephanie, so much for hosting this.
Thank you, Ernesto. You did an amazing job explaining everything to us. So thank you again. I hope this was educational for everybody, and I hope you guys enjoyed the webinar that we put together for you today. And as I mentioned before, please don't forget to go inside the survey at the end of the webinar and answer a couple of questions for us. And yeah, and I do want to talk about Halsey. I know that you had a question. What we're going to do is, because I know we're running out of time, we're going to send you an email with that answer. Okay. And then everyone else, we'll see you in the next webinar. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to always reach out to Ernesto or myself. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Take care, guys. Bye.